and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we are ranking everything I read in Q2, so let's get into it. I'm in my living room because my office is upstairs, which is where I usually film, and it is so stinking hot up there. And I thought a change of scenery would be nice. However, I do have hardwood floors, so if you hear clicking, it's because my dog is walking around. And right before I hit record, I noticed there's a fly, and she might try to get the fly, so we shall see. Anywho, in this quarter, I read 24 books, which is 4 more books than the first quarter of the year, so that's exciting. You'll see that most of the books I read this quarter was for my mini-series where I was ranking the 2024 Goodreads Choice Award nominees in the category of mystery and thriller. If you haven't seen that mini-series, I will link it in the description below. Make sure you go check that one out. And same as the Q1 version of this video, which if you haven't seen that one, I will also link it in the description below. I have my laptop here and we're gonna do some tier rankings. So let's get into it. The first book I read in Q2 was All the Colors of the Dark, and this was a two birds, one stone kind of read for me because this was my book club pick for March, which got pushed to the first Sunday of April due to spring break, and I procrastinated and didn't finish it until April. And this was also one of the nominees for that mystery and thriller video, so it just worked all around. However, I wasn't a huge fan of this one, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Next up was River Sing Me Home, which you guys will recognize from my branching out trying historical fiction video, which if you haven't seen that one, I will link it in the description below. And in this one we have Rachel, who's a slave in Barbados, but the king has decreed an end to slavery. But the plantation owner is now claiming that instead of being their slaves, they are now the plantation owner's apprentices, and they must continue working for him. But Rachel does something crazy. She runs and she goes on this crazy adventure trying to find all of her children who had been sold. This one was good, not my favorite, but I did like it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next one I read was The Great Alone, which was another two birds, one stone. This was part of that branching out trying historical fiction video, and this was my book club's April pick. And this was also the first Kristen Hanna book I ever read, and I loved this one. So this one is about Lenny, who at the start of the book, she's about 14 or so, and her father's decided to move their family of 3 to Alaska, and it's a very stark contrast of the life of what they knew in Seattle. This was a super good book. I gave this one 5 stars. Alrighty, so the next couple are all a part of that Goodreads video, so I'll try to keep it brief. The next one I read was Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. And in this one we have 3 siblings who've all been brought back home to their childhood home after the death of their mother. And they're going through the house, boxing up things, trying to figure out what to do with all of their mother's belongings, when they come across this VHS tape of like a home video, and on it shows something really incriminating of their parents. And so now they're like, okay, do we keep this information secret? Do we take this to the police? What do we do? I like this one a lot. I gave this one 4 stars. Next up, we have The Return of Ellie Black. This is about Ellie, who's a young woman who was kidnapped, and after 2 years, she has returned. But things are weird, and she isn't being super cooperative in the investigation. And we're also following Chelsea, who's the detective, and she's trying to figure out everything. I ended up liking this one, had a really good twist. I gave this one 4 stars. Now, you guys know how much I love Freida McFadden. So the next one was The Boyfriend by Freida McFadden, and this one didn't disappoint. In this one we have Sydney, who's really struggling when it comes to dating, but suddenly she meets this guy who seems perfect. But things aren't exactly as they seem, and Sydney starts to think she might be in danger. I also gave this one 4 stars. Next up was The Last One at the Wedding, which was another book for that Goodreads video, and in this one we're following Frank, who has been estranged from his daughter for a couple years now, until she randomly calls him and says that she's getting married and she wants him to be there. And so Frank, he's just like overjoyed that his daughter's reached back out. He's so excited to rebuild this relationship with her, but he starts to have more and more concerns when he meets his daughter's fiance and her fiance's family, and things are just kind of weird. I liked this one, but the ending kind of fell apart for me and kind of ruined it, so I ended up giving this one 2 stars. Now, this next one, King of Envy, I was in need of a reprieve from all these mystery and thrillers, and this one delivered. I absolutely love this series by Anna Huang. This is the fifth book. I believe it's the fifth book in the King of Sin series by Anna Huang, and I just love these books so much. And in this one, we're following Vuk. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. In my head, I was saying Vuk, and we were introduced to him in the fourth book, and this one was just amazing. Like the rest of the series, this is a billionaire romance, but this one, our main character, is very morally gray, which is fun. I really, really like this one. I gave this one 5 stars. From there, I jumped back into the mystery and thrillers for that video, and I was reading Society of Lies. I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. We start the book from Maya's perspective, and she's at Princeton for her younger sister's graduation. It's like 2 days before graduation. She gets a call from the police, and her sister Naomi has been found dead. And then the rest of the book is a mixture of 3 perspectives: Maya in the present day after her sister's death, Maya back 10 or so years ago when she was a student at Princeton. And then we're also getting Naomi's perspective in the months leading up to her death. This one had good bones, but it just wasn't my favorite. I just really found it frustrating how little Maya and Naomi communicated. It's my hot take that if Naomi and Maya would have just talked about their lives to each other, I think Naomi would have lived. Anywho, I gave this one 2 stars. Now, this next one, We Solve Murders, is a bit silly. So this is definitely like a cozy mystery. And we have Amy, who's a bodyguard, and we love to see women in traditionally male roles. But things go a bit sideways for Amy when it comes to light that someone is trying to frame her for several murders, and the other protective agent on this job tries to attack Amy. And so Amy goes on the run with her client, and chaos just ensues from there. This one's very goofy, but it was kind of fun. It was a nice, different pace than a lot of these other books. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. This next one, House of Glass, I liked this one. We're following Stella, who's an attorney, and her job is to meet with families who are having kind of nasty, like, custody battles, and her job is to make a recommendation to the courts on what would be in the best interest of the child. And I thought that was a really cool setup. And this case that she's currently working on is unlike any other that she's done before. Because we have Rose, who's a 9-year-old girl, and since the traumatic death of her nanny, she has been unable to speak. And so Stella's been brought in to try to help the situation, but the more that Stella starts looking into things, the more unsettled Stella gets. I really liked this one. I gave it 4 stars. Now, this next one, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, I've read several books by him, and there seems to be no middle ground. Either I love the book, it's 5 stars, or I really don't like it. And this landed in the I really don't like it category. So we have Ethan, who's moved back to his childhood home because his parents have moved away. And being back in that house has kind of reopened some old wounds for Ethan, because when Ethan was a little boy, his best friend was kidnapped from Ethan's backyard when Ethan and his best friend were sleeping in Ethan's tent in the backyard. And he was never found. And so now, being back in this house, some weird things are kind of happening. I was a little underwhelmed by this one. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Next up was The Maid. The sequel to this one was on that Goodreads list, but I hadn't read this one. So this was the only homework I had to do for that video, which I will say was kind of nice because I had a lot of homework that I had to do for the romance version of that miniseries that I did beginning of this year. This was the only homework I had to do, so that made it super easy. So in this one, we have Molly, who is a maid at this fancy boutique hotel, and things go really wrong when Molly finds their VIP guest dead in his bed. And it's not from natural causes. And then suddenly, Molly finds herself being framed. I liked this one. I gave it 4 stars. And then next up was the second book in that series, which is the one that was on the Goodreads list, and that is The Mystery Guest. And honestly, I kind of liked this one better than the first one. Once again, we're following Molly, and in this one, we have this prolific author who has come to the hotel, and he has rented out their tea room to make like an exclusive announcement. But before he could say anything, as he's walking up to the podium, he drops dead. And again, not from natural causes. So we have the same detective from the first book, and that detective is convinced that it's Molly's trainee who is the guilty party here. I liked this one. I also gave this one 4 stars, but I will say I think I did like this one better than the first book. So this next one, How to Solve Your Own Murder, I really liked. It was a really fun setup. So we have Annie, who's been summoned by her great aunt Frances. And great aunt Frances is a bit odd. Annie had never met her before, but great aunt Frances is making some changes to her estate planning. And is wanting to talk about those changes to her will. And the thing about Great Aunt Frances is she's a little bit of a hermit because when she was a girl, she was given a fortune saying that she was going to be murdered. So Frances, who's now somewhere in her 70s, I believe, has spent her entire life trying to solve her own murder before it happened. So Annie gets to this like huge countryside estate. But once Annie gets there, along with some other distant relatives, they find Frances dead. And she has been murdered. So then the rest of the book is Annie trying to figure out what happened and also trying to figure out who is Frances. This one was fun. I liked it. I saw that there's going to be a sequel, which I am kind of interested in picking up. So I gave this one 4 stars. Alrighty, so this next one I loved, and that is Listen for the Lie, and this one was just so cool. So we're following Lucy, who's a suspect in her best friend's murder, but Lucy can't exonerate herself because she has no recollection of that night due to a serious head injury that Lucy sustained that same night. And so while there wasn't enough evidence to convict her, the court of public opinion has kind of found her guilty. Now, 5 or so years later, this podcaster has come to this small Texas town, and he's going around and interviewing people, trying to see if he can solve this cold case. And I have to say, if you're going to pick this one up, pick up the audiobook because it was such a fun listening experience because you get to listen to the podcast episodes like you're listening to an actual true crime podcast. Like there's theme music, there's sound effects. Oh my gosh, there's a dog hair on my face. It's really cool because it's like even edited in a way so that it sounds like you're listening to a podcast. Like it sounds like you're listening to someone who's leaning into a microphone to talk, and then you have the other one, and then they're leaning back in, and there's other sound effects and things, and it's just such a cool experience. Not to mention, I just loved this story too. I really liked Lucy and her like dry, dark humor. That was right up my alley. Like at times I forgot I was listening to a book. I thought I was just listening to like a true crime podcast. I loved this one and I gave this one 5 stars. Next up, we have The Heiress, and I wasn't the biggest fan of this one. We're following married couple Jules and Cam, and they're going back to Cam's childhood home because his uncle has passed, and Cam is the owner of the estate, and the house is needing some repairs. Cam's family is incredibly wealthy, but he's been estranged from the family for like 10 years or so, and this whole book was just really mid to me. I gave this one 2 stars. So here, I needed a little break from all the mysteries and thrillers, and I discovered Elsie Silver earlier this year, and I just love her stuff. And so this first book, Flawless, is the first book in the Chestnut Spring series, and we're following Rhett, who is a professional bull rider. And after a little bit of a PR scandal, he's at risk of losing all of his sponsors. So his agent has assigned him a babysitter, and her job is to kind of help him get his act cleaned up and clean up his image. And that babysitter is his agent's daughter, Summer, who is trying to learn the ropes of this field. I really liked this one until we got to the end, and then we got to that 3rd act conflict, and it kind of ruined it for me. So this one ended up being a 3 star Now, this next one, Heartless, is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series, and I loved this one. We're following Rhett's brother, Cade, who works the ranch and is a single dad, and he's in desperate need of a nanny for the summer. And so Summer introduces him to her best friend, Willa. And this one was just so good. I gave this one 5 stars. Now, back to our mystery and thrillers. I also didn't really like this one. So we're at this like English countryside resort, and in the present day, we're following police as they're trying to figure out what happened during opening weekend because there's been a fire and a body's been found at the bottom of the cliffside. But you get way too many perspectives leading up to the present day, and it just was so unbelievable to me. I really didn't like this one. I gave it 1 star. Now, this next one, The Night We Lost Him, was also for that mystery and thriller video. However, I'm kind of surprised it was on that list because it kind of more felt like a family drama, in my opinion. So we have Nora, who has been approached by her half-brother, who she's not really close with, but he's reached out to her because he doesn't think that their father, who passed away like a month ago, he doesn't think that their father passed away of natural causes like they were being told. So Nora and him start investigating, and this one was just interesting. There was a lot of talk of grief and how that affects relationships, and I don't know. I guess maybe it's a cozy mystery. I didn't really get huge mystery thriller vibes from this one. So like it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. I would potentially be interested in picking up something else by this author because I did like her writing style. The story was just a little meh for me, you know? Now, this next one I really liked. This was Darling Girls, and I definitely want to pick up some other stuff by this author because I really liked this one. We're following these 3 women who were all in the same foster home together growing up, and in the present day, they have been reached out by police because the foster home that they were all in was bought by someone else and it was bulldozed, and they found human remains under the house. And so the women now, they go back to this town and they're speaking with police, and you're getting their flashbacks of them growing up in that house. And I will say, if child abuse is something that is hard for you or triggering, don't pick this one up because there's a lot of that, and it made me sad, but it was good. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really like this one. Now, The God of the Woods. This was our last book for the mystery and thriller video, and I like this one. There's a lot of perspectives in this one, and the timeline isn't linear. You're kind of bouncing all over the place. You get lots of flashbacks. But the main premise of the story is we have Barbara, who is the daughter of the owners of this kind of upscale summer camp, but one day she goes missing. And to make it worse, about 15 years ago, Barbara's older brother also went missing from that same land, and now we're trying to figure out what's going on. I liked this one. I gave this one 4 stars. Now, Butcher of the Forest was the last book that I finished in Q2, and I really didn't like this one. This is my book club's pick for June, and we all agreed that we didn't like this one. So we're following Varys, who was summoned by the Tyrant, is what they called him. And she's been summoned because his children have wandered off into the Forbidden Woods, and no one has ever returned from those woods except for Varys. And she's been instructed to bring back his children, otherwise he's gonna burn down her entire village. I hate to be a hater, but this one was just bad. There was just no explanation of anything, and everyone in my book club agreed this wasn't a good book. It was really short, which was nice, 160 pages. And someone did point out it could be good if this was like a prequel of one of the like children's life story and that went off into something, it would maybe be better. But this is just like a random standalone that just really didn't make sense, and I really didn't like it. I gave it 1 star. Alrighty, that is everything I read in Q2. Thank you so much for being here. We have kind of an interesting spread here. I'm looking at my laptop, and yeah, a lot of 4 stars, but then also a good amount of 5 stars, and then a couple 1 stars. So just a real wide range of books here. My goal this year is to read 75 books, and so far I have read 44, which Goodreads tells me is 8 books ahead of schedule, so I'm feeling pretty proud of myself for that. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have read any of the books that I talked about today, and don't forget to subscribe. I post videos every single Wednesday, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.